The red light's on.
Yeah, the red light, you're going.
We just started? Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is now. Okay. This is Lucy Crookston, also Delilah Lucille Fuller Crookston. On October 21st, 2015, at the library recording some of my history. I like to start back as far as I can remember and start with my health problems. When I was born, I was allergic to milk, and I was raised on goat's milk that they had to get from a farmer. So it was started then, and then I went to school with my two younger children up in Strawberry Rome, as they called it. And everything in school, then my sister Dorothy seemed to catch and give it to my sisters, Dorothy and Donna and Lorraine. And that went on for quite a while through all the measles, the mumps, and the whooping cough. It was a time that my mother had all three of us in beds trying to help each other. I went to school and eventually joined in the seminary classes, and it was there somewhere I came down with the polio. The polio, I went to school that day and came home and laid down on the couch, and I don't remember right after that what happened, but then they got Dr. Connor, an old doctor that my mother had gone to. They talked to him, and he said diagnosis at polio was more on the right side than on the left. And I had trouble with walking straight. And that after I got up from that, I had lost a year of school, and so Dorothy and my sister and I were in the same grade, and she loved that. She really let me know that she was really doing good. After I was married to James Albert Crookston, then I contacted, within a year after our marriage and just after the first baby was born, I had developed rheumatoid arthritis. And that was total body, it seemed. And all the treatments they wanted me to take, we couldn't afford some of them, so we just had to do without them. And some of them were gold treatments, which were $50. I seemed to get by, but I found an herb that was very good. It was comfrey. And I took comfrey, or just ate the fresh leaves, the small tender leaves, just ate them. Then I was left with another problem of walking and of hurting and back, and I received blessings at the time was needed. But then I never got rid of the rheumatoid arthritis. It was always and has always been with me. It would affect my legs where that I couldn't walk straight, and sometimes even sitting, but generally I didn't have any outward appearances. And one doctor said that I could not have had rheumatoid arthritis for that long and not have it show on my bones or my hands. But I had continued to try and change our eating habits to more raw fruits and vegetables. And they decided that most of my arthritis was inside. The one doctor showed me that I should have more deformity than I had. And so it came to the point that he took in and did some tests and then came out saying, yes, you do have rheumatoid. I can't believe it. He was surprised himself. But by this time I had learned to pretty well handle it, except it would sometimes totally put me out, and I would have to stay in bed. And with 5 or 6 kids, it was a little bit difficult. And I never usually thought that nobody really understood how much pain. And one time the doctor said, well, if you're having a lot of pain, it would bruise the body from the inside out. And I said, nope, I don't have any bruises. But then later I got up and went and looked, and my shoulder and one part of my back was bruised, black and blue. And so they agreed that when there was pain, there was going to be something developed. But I had kept on with the Comfrey, and when we went on our mission later in 1992, then I had always grown the Comfrey at home, so it was fresh. And when we came back and I went to buy some Comfrey plants, could not find them. And finally they told me that they were illegal, they were too dangerous, and so they had taken them off the market. So from then on I had to continue to grow my own Comfrey and eat a leaf every now and then, and that seemed to help. At this time in life I have taken to falling quite a bit, and they keep telling me I'm going to break a bone, and that would take care of everything. But I have fallen sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, just short falls, but I've never broken anything, and I keep hoping that it would stop, but it hasn't. After the time with the Comfrey, I had surgery for removing of a gallbladder, and they asked me if I wanted to have a special blessing because one of the general authorities was in the hospital. And I told them no, that my husband would be there and he would give me a blessing. And they said, but this is a general authority. And I said, that's all right. My husband has the same priesthood and I'll wait for him. And they didn't understand that, but it was what happened. It took a little while to get back on my feet, and I hated to change baby diapers. And that was painful because of trying to get the pins through the cloth of the diapers. And I don't believe they had diapers that you could disposable diapers that you could walk in and buy them. Then it's a bag. They weren't as popular. We lived on 3100 South in Granger, West Valley, and people were very good to help, but as I had no outward appearances of being sick, then some of them did not understand or did not think it was that serious. It was up at Brighton that I had chest pains, but they diagnosed it as something else, and all I need to do is relax and let it go away. But this one Sunday morning, I started having very severe chest pains. And I told my husband, James Crookson, that I was really hurting. I needed to go back to the cabin and get under some hot water. And he kept telling me, just a minute, and finally I had to go into the meeting and tell him I needed to get back. I really was hurting. And so he came out, and the others came out too. And then one of them said, well, we had to go from the church over to the ski run to get on the snowmobile. And one of them offered his truck, he would drive me over there, and then I wouldn't have to walk it because I was hurting. It turned out that I couldn't get up in the truck, and so it took two of them to finally get me up in the truck, and I was still in pain. And they drove us through the Sunday crowd over to where the snowmobile was parked and helped me get on that snowmobile so James could take me up to the cabin. And I tried a hot shower, but that didn't help. So we finally decided we'd call down and see if one of at the clinic down at the ski building, if Tom Whitkey was there. I'd go down if he was there, but if he wasn't there, I didn't want to go. But he was there, and so they put me back on the snowmobile and then drove down to the clinic and then shoved. The way they got the patients in was through the window. So they put me through the window into the table and asked me what was wrong. And then they said they would have to call an ambulance, and I think they must have got one right away because the ambulance was there in just no time. I never lost consciousness. I was always aware of everything that was going on. So we got back in and the ambulance arrived, and I was still alert and aware of everything, and they had given me a pill, so the pain was not nearly as severe. But we rode down the hill in the ambulance, which was slow and uncomfortable. Another time I had to go to the hospital. Then we went in the truck, and I had a little heart attack. But this time, I've lost my place. We went down through they decided it was bad enough I needed a helicopter. So they put me in a helicopter, which was very uncomfortable. And between these times, they had decided it was a heart attack, and the next time they put me in an ambulance to go down to the parking lot. Got in the ambulance. That was a boring ride. I did not like that at all. But that was, and then, so I went in the ambulance twice, the helicopter, and then right down in the truck for my illness. They took me on an ambulance one time. Then they did not think I would live until they got to the hospital. And I had told them to go to St. Mark's or LDS Hospital, but they didn't think they had time to do that. And they thought I would not make it to the hospital, but I made it there, and I didn't want them to do anything to me like cutting me up that I could do without that. So they didn't think I would live long enough for the surgery. Then they didn't think I would come out of it. And then they decided I would not survive after the operation. And when I came through, I counted 13 wires going from me to different parts of the bed that was hanging there. And I told Kathy, my daughter, 13 wires, and she says, well, you got a few more above your head. But I was in the hospital, I believe, 9 days. And then I went home, and they said I could not go back to Brighton. I had to stay out of that high altitude. And one of our friends said that we could come to their house. They had a basement floor, no steps. It was all ready. And so we took them, that was the Motts, Clinton and his wife, brother and sister Mott. And we stayed there for maybe a month, quite a few days. And they fed us, had our basement apartment that we stayed in. And we later found out they had to rent a bed, and we insisted we had to pay for that. But they insisted that we didn't. But they fed us and took care of us for the time that we were there. We enjoyed coming up to Brighton for one day to see how I would do, and I was fine. I was able to stay in Brighton, and so we went back to Brighton and put some support systems up. But for the surgery, we counted that I had 70-something stitches where they had taken the vein out of the leg to use to go for my heart. And I had 6 bypasses and 4 or 5 stents and then a pacemaker over the years. And my heart has been steady and good. Only has caused problems once or twice where I went to the hospital and it was doing fine. Now at this age of 88, I have developed problems with my spine, which I broke it one morning as we came downstairs. I got up and grabbed a hold of the cannonball bed and slipped and fell and broke my back. Good clean fracture, they said. And so from then on, for the next month, 2 months, then I had to wear a brace, and I got along fine. I wore it under my clothes, and if you didn't know, wouldn't know that I had a brace on. But I was able to go back and live in Brighton for about 15 years. And that was the place where we had the mostest fun. People were good and kind and considerate. And we were able to go forward and to enjoy all the activities there. Neither James and I could see very well. James did all right for a while till he fell and hit a tree and broke his leg just below the kneecap. And that was mistaken as just a bruise, but it turned out that he had to have surgery and have that replaced. Brighton was one of the next things that we enjoyed, and we enjoyed the friends and the people there and the opportunities that we were given. And we pray that we might be able to accomplish and go and stay there. And I would die on the ski run in my tennis shoes. We prayed, had an opportunity, James, to be branch president and then to be the counselor at girls' camp. And girls' camp was a solid joy. We were able to go forward with that. we pray that that will help us. Oh, I'm slipping back. At Brighton, we went over to girls' camp every Thursday night for their testimonial meeting, and we had the bishops and leaders on one side, and the girls all step on the other side of the benches and the seating there, so we could all hear, and that was excellent. We were disappointed that our children didn't come up more than they did, but it was different and it was a longer drive. And we prayed that we might be able to go forward. We enjoyed the animals in Brighton. When we first got there, there were still a lot of moose around, and deer, and the porcupines and the birds were plentiful. There were ground squirrels and night squirrels, and there were beavers. We had bird feeders, and we had night squirrels that would come, that got inside our feeders, even though they were supposed to be squirrel proof. But we finally had to move the night squirrels out because of the mountain lion, or that was up there, realized that they came at night and he was feasting upon them. We made friends with the workers, and I would make cookies to take over because they would clean our driveway for us right out to the ski run. And we appreciated that. We stayed because I had to get down within 30 minutes of the hospital, and James could not shovel the 9 or 10 feet of snow all day for some days. Our grand boys would come up, and we would be able to watch them from the cabin, and they were out there watching what they did, and they did what they call show air, where they skied up in the air and went off of a run, and went off and twirled around in the air and then came down. They had James skied for a while until he hit a tree, and then he had to stop and not ski anymore. But we had many special friends up there. We had Floss, who was our camp director, and she was so thoughtful and kind and ready to help us when we needed her. And she quit about the same time that we were leaving. The ski run went right in front of the cabin, right in front of it, so that we could watch the boys go in and out. They had the 4th of July parade every year, homemade floats, and all bicycles and tricycles, and anything anybody wanted to push, they would decorate them up, so appropriate for the 4th of July. Motorcycles even, snow plows, and go around the loop twice so that we could see them, and the kids could drop off where their parents were. But we enjoyed the animals, and then as things got busier, more people were moving in, then the animal population has diminished quite a bit. And we have a lot, once a year they had the dummy downhill race, which where you could build a sled, any kind of sled, and push it down the hill and it had to get to a certain point to be counted and as a winner. So there was no awards or anything, you just built it. And someone built a snowman and would have him sitting on the back of an animal and then push that down and see if they couldn't win. And one of the porcupines, skunks, they would come right up to the door. And even the night squirrels, we could take pictures of them. When we first started out, we didn't have a snowmobile to use up there, so we pulled all of our equipment and everything out behind a sled. James could pull it up the hill. And finally we got 3 snowmobiles, which was way too many, but we had people looking out for us and helping us. And the 3 snowmobiles, we finally gave one away, and then we had one that we kept that was a smaller one, and then one that was a 2-seater. But we enjoyed the snow, and when I was sick with my heart and staying in Mott's house, one of the men from down in the ward in Wasatch State insisted we needed a dog. And I kept insisting, no, we did not need a dog. You had to put down a deposit, had to have a fenced yard and all this and that. And finally, we saw the little dog, went down just to see it. And we got to see it, and that was it. We came home with a little white American Eskimo that they had been calling Teddy. And I didn't feel like changing it at all, so we just called him Teddy. And he barked at everything. Everything that was he could see. No matter what we did, he still barked. But we found out later that some people enjoyed him barking because they knew that somebody was around. We had many special experiences, and right now I can't think of any more. We had the chapel down there, which was a small little building. It had, in summers, we had up to 300 people, but during the rest of the year, we had 30, 35. It was just a small ward, and everybody had different things. And at one time, I had 5 positions: ringing the bell, leading the music, teaching primary, and home visiting teaching. And I can't remember the other one right now. So, but we had our rides in the snow plows, huge equipment, and when I came down the hill, then the guys down there from the snowmobile up there would call down and help me off the snowmobile on their treads, because you had to walk up their big steel treads to get to just to get into the cab of the plow. And inside was air conditioned and a radio, a stereo, and so it was nice. It was very enjoyable, and we met a lot of new people and a lot of nice friends. And we were able to take part in anything that we wanted to. And the neighbors had a yellow sled, and they never used it. and I wanted that yellow sled. I wanted to buy it or get it from them. And they weren't going to do it. And when they finally moved, they didn't want the sled anymore, so they gave it to us. And we were going to paint it like the Santa Claus sled and take and put it out in front for Christmas. We always had a flag to show and to have. And when we could walk down to the chapel every morning, then I would be caught by the snowboarders that were doing their work before the resort opened, and they seemed to take satisfaction in turning their snowboards just a certain way so that it hit. I was hit with snow, but I was prepared. I knew what to do. We didn't want to leave Brighton, but both of us knew we had gone past our prime and it was time now. But we enjoyed it most of all of our places. The kids, the boys and Mike's kids were very active in coming up, and the others, it was a longer drive. We hope to leave the cabin to the kids, although it's still when we left Brighton, we looked for a place that was small enough that I could keep house in and that James could grow a garden. And we looked for a couple of years, and then finally after a while, we were looking only up near the big Mountainwood Canyon so that we wouldn't have where to travel. But after looking for a couple of years and not finding them, then we just was looking anywhere. While we were in Brighton, we started asking them about what everybody did for Halloween, because it was kind of rough to get on the neighbors, because it was so cold and muddy, and it always seemed to snow just before Halloween, which made it cold and wet. But we finally decided to have it in our chapel, and we put it in our chapel and invited everybody to come, and it was an answer. The kids could come and march around the recreation hall, and we would all drop things in their sack, and they didn't have to go out in the cold. And since many of them were inactive Mormons, we just decided that was a way to do it. But then they said, well, this James would give the prayer, and so he did. So they started out afterwards always having prayer, and while we were there, they added onto the chapel a Relief Society room and another room, and I was disappointed. I thought they ought to leave the chapel just like it was. And we had someone that would put lights up on the big tree outside the front window, and that was nice. But finally, the tree grew to be so tall that they couldn't put lights on it anymore. We enjoyed the time that we were there and the time that we were able to make so many nice friends. when we finally got down in the valley, we went to the temple one day, and as we come back down 1300, there was this sign for sale, and we hadn't even looked in that area. We had looked all around outside of this area, south. But as we drove by, James decided we'd go back and look, so we turned around and the truck and came back. And as we were getting out of the truck and we stood there on the sidewalk, both of us felt this was it. It was a little house, little white house, and it did have land around it. And so we called and told him we were interested, and it was what we wanted, a big yard, which was a half acre, a little bit less, but almost a half acre, and with this little house with 2 bedrooms and a front room and outside deck. And it was just right. We both knew this was what we should get. So we got that, put that house down on ours, and we found out that behind us the bishop lived in the little pathway, and a high councilman, and then finally a state president in their beautiful big homes, and our little house was in front. Across the pathway from us was an inactive family, but very nice, and we became friends with all of them, and they helped us and would surprise us with gifts and different things, of food especially, wonderful cooks, and we enjoyed, although it is getting a little bit hard for James to get out and do the yard work, and some of the housework he does all the time anyway. And so it was one of those things where we kept changing and doing things. One of the members, one of our neighbors, Sassines, he had a beautiful voice, and he ended up, he had his own barbershop quartet, which was just wonderful. And sometimes we'd try and listen to him, and we went to some of their recitals that they had, their showings, but he had probably close to 50 or 75 men who were singing this barbershop, and it was just very good. And he went from that to singing in the Tabernacle Choir. And so every Sunday we would try and see him in the Tabernacle Choir when they read. We pray. We knew this was the right decision, was that little house. And the more people we met, the more kind they were. Our home teachers especially have been helpful and considerate about us and in taking us or doing things for us. And the bishops, I cannot recognize people and put names to them, or I can just put a name, but I can't recognize who they are. But it has been a right choice and a right time and a place that we could be, and within 30 minutes of the hospital. And we can drive around in this valley, which is really upheld a lot. Getting back to my family as I grew up, from the time that I had the polio, which was very hard to get used to, but they said I was to go into a wheelchair, and my mother said, no wheelchair, she'll get by on her own. And if I wanted to eat, or if I wanted to go out on the front porch, I had to make it myself, and sometimes people would help me, but not often, because she was not going to have a sickie on her hands the rest of her life. Her mother, who they were from Illinois, Grandma and Grandpa Overby, had lived in Illinois until Grandma got sick, and they said they had to come out to a warm, sunny climate. And so they left there and came out and landed in Ajo and also in Mesa for a while. But her mother had taken sick and she had to quit school so that she could take care of her mother. And she always regretted that, losing out on the school and other things. But they took good care of me, but I had never felt how I was loved. Never felt, nobody ever hugged me, and they provided everything else. And so Dorothy was the quick one, or the one who would get into trouble the most. And sometimes I had to take the punishment. One day we were outside playing, and I was in a sandbox making some little racetracks, I guess. And all of a sudden, here comes Dorothy rushing by me further around the house. And then the next person was my mother, and she yanked me up and told me I shouldn't be doing that. And I said, I didn't. She said, yes, you did, I saw you. And so she was just certain that it was me, but it was Dorothy, because she laughed about that. I took the punishment for Dorothy. But often we would be mixed up because we had my mother always dressed us alike. All three daughters alike. So we could be mistaken one for the other. And different things that we did, people didn't know which one was me or which one was Dorothy. But she made some moves that she was wise. She married Walter Johnson and in the temple, and then that was about the last time, I think. And her children, Charlene, the oldest girl, has stayed active and going about her own things. But she has stayed active and done the things that she's wanted to. Lorraine, or Donna, became very inactive and questioning the church and challenging it. She married once and didn't last. And then she was able to do what she wanted to, and she made enough money when she retired. She didn't have to worry about the money. And because she was the only one not married and had a home, and all my mother had was left to her. And Dorothy wanted more than what she got, and she would say that I had stolen the things. And I know Grandma Overby gave me things that they didn't know about because she knew what Dorothy would say. And so we tried all the time to be careful. But I can't remember anybody being affectionate in our family. It was when the children were with the group, we never spoke unless we were asked. And across the street lived Clarence Shaw, and his sisters were operatic singers, and she couldn't stand that operatic music. My mother couldn't. Most of the things I will edit out, I guess, but my dad was a cheerful, easygoing person. He loved chocolates, and he had a truck, and he would use the truck to hide things in. And so when he parked the truck and went in the house for something, we would scramble to go through the truck till we could find the box of chocolates. He hid them everywhere. He hid them in the house, but sometimes we never found them, but most of the time we did. We are happy that we could do the things we wanted to. Lorraine met Fred Carter and paid for it the rest of her life. She had 4 children. I never understood the situation there. Fred didn't trust any banks, and so the things were hidden around the house, except for one time when something broke in the bathroom and they had to call a plumber to fix it, and he fixed it and left. And after he left, Walter went in to check some gold coins that he had hidden in there, and they were gone. And he had more than he should have, according to the limit of the law, but it came out that he had all of it hidden in banks. Another time he told one of his daughters that he was sick and needed more cash. So he told her where one of these boxes were that he had hidden in a bank. And when he got feeling better, he asked her, Fred asked his daughter for the money and the cash that was there. And she denied she had heard anything about it. And he never did see the money again. So his other daughter, Yvonne Carter, married, and the first one didn't work out, but they had a girl, and she is very modern, very up in style. But she was totally, when the funeral, when Fred or Yvonne got married, then the girl did come and sit there. Very nice, but James and I and the daughter were the only family they had. I had always wanted to play the piano, always. And with us moving around, we couldn't have a piano. So my mother finally got from the school a violin, and I was to learn to play the violin until they could get a piano. And that went on for a long time, and then finally my dad had a chance to get a piano, and he got this piano from some lady's well-known singer from her house, so it was a very good piano. And I tried to take lessons, and I couldn't do that, but at that time we didn't know that I had, my eyes were not merging correctly, and I was transposing one hand to the other hand, and I had it very difficult, but I kept trying, but I never got to learn to play it. And when we got married, there was no place we could put a piano, and Dorothy got the piano, and then gave it to Charlene. We didn't travel back from Salt Lake, travel back to Phoenix very much. It was just too expensive, and we couldn't afford the gas to go back home. And when we did, we would stay with one of the family, the relatives. Grandma and Grandpa Crookston, Carl Crookston, and Annie would come to visit, but that never worked out. They sometimes would stay in a hotel and then come out to spend the day with us. My dad and Mom divorced at about 18 or 20 years. And my mother got the house, had to fight for it. My dad did not want the divorce. He hadn't done what she accused him of, and we never did understand that. But after the divorce, which went on for a couple of years, then he had this friend, Clara, and I don't remember her last name, but Clara was right there, and they got married, and right from the beginning it was a mistake. But they had 2 children. My dad kind of had to raise them. She turned out to be an alcoholic, and he would have to raise them and take to work with them because of the lack of care that they got. When he died, everybody was surprised. My mother and my sisters went, and I couldn't go because I had flu at that time. But all the neighbors and the friends up there were surprised that he had another family. They never had realized that there was other children before Claire. But Claire did give him a son and a daughter, and he was an electrician, a master electrician. He got work wherever he went or wanted, and he had a really good job in Mesa, and he was teaching the new hired electric guys. He was teaching them how to take care of their work and what to do, and then they would leave. And he soon found out that he was teaching them to go on to better jobs than what he had and what he was being paid. And that made him mad that he would teach these young men what to do, and then they would get a better job. So he just quit. And then that's the time that he quit and went out to Oracle and got a job out there, and he got his own business started. Not too good, but he did get it. And my family there were good times, a lot of them bad times, I thought. And the others, I was the one that was more religious than the others. And the family thought, James ought to retire. He'd been in there long enough, and then we could do what we wanted to. But we used to go, when we'd go up to visit my dad up in Tucson, and he'd take us out night hunting, and that would be where you go out. He had big spotlights on the truck, and we would go out and with the spotlights sight a rattler as it was going across the road or laying by the road. And I had a necklace of rattles from the rattles he had shot. And one of the things was that he'd bring the big rattlers back. They could be 8 or 10 feet long. And he would bring them back, and he had a barrel, and he would bury them in. And then after so long, he could dig them up, and the rattler's meat was just as good as any other meat, he said. And I don't think I ever tasted it, or I tasted it but didn't want it. So, and my time is just about up. I don't know when I will be doing this again, but we are enjoying our little house, only both of us have health problems, and it's interfering with what we want to do. I am losing my back because of the back injury, and it must have been something where the connection between my head and my feet and my body is not working right. So they've told me to go into a wheelchair, and I guess I will. I'm getting worse and worse and falling more. Even in the house, I hit the walls, which is why we wanted a little house, because I could reach out and balance myself by the walls, and that has been a good thing. I did a lot of sewing. In fact, my kids would not have had clothes if I couldn't have made some of them. And when I went to work at the Fox Theater, which was an outstanding theater for Phoenix, Arizona at that time, then I was able to buy my first store-bought dress. And everyone thought that was silly, but I had my first store-bought dress, and I earned my own money, and we had to, I think we paid my mother, when we went to work, $20 a month, and that was a lot of money in those days. And that was a teller in the cashier's box, and we had to get to the point where we could fill the Fox Theater with Saturday morning kids before it started. We had to get all those kids in, and I had reached that point where 11 cents to get into the theater and 79 cents, 75 or 79 cents to get in the Lotus, which was the deluxe comfortable chairs. Well, that's about it. Thank you. Hi.
Did it finish?
Yeah, it's all blinking and I finished.
Okay, so it's recording.
How'd you do, Lucy?
Oh, there you are. That fell out of my catalog, I think that's from your,
So, they said your other one was good, so
Yes.
that's good. You've got 2 of them done now
and
then.
I think that's gonna cover it pretty much. I only wanted enough to satisfy my.
Now, they
kid.
need to do something, so we just
Oh.
wanna go out here and
Yeah,
wait?
we'll
or-
wait out there, huh?
Okay, let me take this, and do you want your water?
Yeah, I did.
You don't have to vacate the room yet.
You what?
You don't have to vacate the room yet if you don't want to.
Okay, you wanna just sit here? He said we don't need to leave
Oh, all right.
and wait until they finish, so.
You got, oh, there's a pillow back there, huh?
Yeah, it
Okay.
says here, explain, invite them to step outside the family family story room to wait. But I don't see why you can't wait here.
Okay, well, if somebody needs it, holler and we'll move
Well,
out.
there is somebody coming at noon, but it's
Okay,
fine.
okay.